"You don't belong at this level of venue." My sister said it at the rehearsal dinner loud enough for the Sterling family to glance over their champagne glasses. Her fiancé smirked and added stick to budget hotels. Laughter flickered around the table like tiny sparks meant to burn me alive. I didn't defend myself. I didn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. I just stood there letting the humiliation wash over me like cold tide water. They thought I was out of place, a mistake on their perfect weekend canvas. But then the resort director walked up, leaned in, and whispered 5 words that made everything shift. "My name is Allison Hart, and for most of my life, my family treated me like the footnote in a story they believed only they were meant to tell. You'd think being the oldest would mean something stability, wisdom, maybe even a little respect. But in the Hart household, worth was measured by shine. Whoever sparkled brightest won. And I was never the one they chose to polish. Caroline, my younger sister, was the family diamond. Even as kids, she glowed. Big eyes, perfect hair, the kind of smile adults praised as a star in the making. Mom built her entire identity around presenting Caroline as a masterpiece. Dad played along simply because it was easier than arguing. And Ethan, our brother, found comfort in superiority. He was the golden boy, the financial prodigy, the one who looked down at the world like everything existed to validate him. Me, I grew up in the quiet corners, more comfortable with books than small talk, more curious about how things worked than how they looked. I was the one helping our grandmother in her small kitchen, learning the rhythm of brewing coffee and folding sheets tight enough to pass her military-like standards. She was a hotel housekeeper her whole life. But to me, she was a master of dignity. She never raised her voice, never demanded space. She earned it by showing up, by knowing the real weight of work. She'd tell me, people notice the loud ones first, but they remember the quiet ones longer. I never knew how prophetic that would become. By the time I left for college, Caroline was already modeling for local boutiques. Ethan was mapping out his 6F-figure future, and Mom was perfecting the art of reminding me that I was practical, which was her polite way of saying plain. I worked 3 jobs, front desk, cafe, cleaning shifts to scrape my way into the hospitality world. Not glamorous work, but honest work that taught me what real luxury demanded. Not money, but precision. Yet, no matter how far I climbed, nothing I did ever seemed to break through the glass box my family kept me in. They never asked about my work, never wondered why I traveled so much, never questioned how I suddenly lived in a high-rise or stopped worrying about bills. They assumed I was barely getting by, and honestly, I let them. Silence is easier than explaining success to people who only understand it when it comes wrapped in labels and price tags. Still, when Caroline announced she was having a luxury beachfront wedding weekend, it didn't surprise me that Mom's first message wasn't an invitation, but please don't wear anything that stands out. Let the event shine, not you. Classic. So, I packed my simplest dresses, tied my hair back, and told Daniel I'd be fine going alone. He offered to come, of course, but I didn't want him dragged into the vortex of Hart family theatrics. I thought I could handle a weekend of polite distance, tight smiles, and whispered judgments. But the moment I stepped into the resort's grand lobby, marble floors, glowing coastal light pouring in, staff moving like a choreographed ballet, I sensed it immediately. My family's eyes scanning me, measuring me, calculating how I might embarrass them. I had no idea how bad it would get. I had no idea how far they would push. And I definitely didn't expect that by the end of this weekend, everything they believed about me would shatter. The rehearsal dinner shimmered like something pulled straight from a magazine, gold-trimmed glasses linen, so crisp it could cut servers gliding between tables with trays balanced on steady hands. Caroline basked in it, glowing in a satin dress chosen to match the decor. She fit the scene perfectly. I fitted the way a loose thread fits a couture gown present, but unwanted. I hadn't even reached the champagne fountain before Mom's eyes swept over me, sharp and assessing. "Is that what you decided to wear?" she murmured, as if my navy dress might infect the room with mediocrity. I gave the safest answer I knew. Silence. But silence didn't save me. Caroline looped her arm through Lucas's and floated over the 2 of them, grinning like royalty addressing a peasant. She leaned in, her perfume sugary sweet, her voice anything but, "You don't belong at this level of venue." The words came out smooth, practiced like she'd been waiting to deliver that line. Lucas didn't skip a beat. "Stick to budget hotels," he added, sipping his champagne, his tone dripping with effortless dismissal. A few guests pretended not to hear, others didn't bother. Someone at the next table stifled a laugh. Ethan arrived right on cue, drink in hand, smirk in place. Honestly, Allison, I'm impressed you made it here without getting lost. These kinds of places aren't your scene. He meant it as a joke. He always did jokes coated in cruelty. Valerie Sterling, perfectly poised in her diamond earrings, stepped closer just long enough to offer a smile that didn't touch her eyes. It takes confidence to show up somewhere so elevated, she said. The pause before the last word did all the talking. Each comment was a shove, small but deliberate, pushing me toward an edge they assumed I'd eventually fall from. And maybe once years ago I would have, but not now. Not after everything I'd built. Not after every sacrifice no one in this room knew about. Still, I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I nodded steady and expressionless, letting their words land and settle wherever they wanted. But when Lucas lifted his glass and said loudly, "Family photos are next immediate family only," that was the first cut I actually felt. He didn't even look at me when he said it. He didn't need to. I stepped back, letting them gather under the terrace lights, posing like the perfect family they pretended to be. Yet, as I stood alone, the ocean wind brushing past me, I noticed Jason, the resort director, watching from across the room. He checked his tablet, hesitated, then started walking toward me. Something in his expression told me this night was about to turn. The terrace was quieter than the ballroom, the ocean humming below like it understood things people didn't. I leaned against the railing, letting the cool breeze press against the heat, rising in my chest. Their words still echoed polished insults wrapped in family. Smiles. I'd grown used to being underestimated, but tonight it hit different. Maybe because they weren't just dismissing me, they were erasing me. Behind me, laughter burst from the ballroom. Caroline's laugh high and glittering the sound of someone thrilled with her own performance. I closed my eyes and exhaled. Staying silent had always been my shield, but tonight it felt like a weight I could barely carry. Footsteps approached, soft measured. Professional Allison. I opened my eyes. Jason stood there, tablet in hand, expression tight, not with judgment but concern. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My pulse shifted. Not fast, shallow, controlled. "Not here," I whispered. He nodded and motioned toward a side hallway away from the guests. When the door closed behind us, he lowered his voice. "I'm sorry to bother you during your family's event, but there's an issue developing." I almost laughed. If only he knew the half of it. "What kind of issue?" "Howard Sterling." His jaw tensed on the name. "He's been arguing with staff, questioning charges, claiming we're upcharging uneducated guests." He hesitated, then added, "Maria's in tears. Jonah, too." A familiar protective anger stirred in me. The kind you don't learn from books. The kind you inherit from women who clean rooms with pride and leave the world better than they found it. "What exactly is he disputing?" I asked. "Everything he personally requested," Jason said. "Late-night catering, upgraded bar service, the premium linens. He signed the approvals, but he's threatening complaints, bad reviews, demands a meeting with the owner." Of course he did. Men like Howard never yelled at their sons. They yelled at staff. Staff who couldn't yell back. And Jason continued, lowering his voice even more. "There's something else." He held up his tablet. "The documents you requested, the ownership transfer, it's all finalized. Effective as of this afternoon." I let the words settle, not shocked. I'd been waiting for this confirmation, but the timing was almost poetic. Down the hall, I heard Caroline's laughter again. Then Mom's voice, sharp and proud. A fragment of Lucas bragging to a group of guests. I imagined them posing for more photos, drinking champagne I technically owned, floating through a venue they believed they were too good for and believed I was too small for. Jason waited as I processed. He didn't know the whole story. He didn't need to. What mattered was the question in his eyes. "Are you ready?" I straightened my posture. "Where's Howard now?" "Lobby pacing. He's demanding to speak with the owner immediately." My jaw set. "Then bring him to the executive office in 10 minutes. Jason blinked. Should I tell him who he's meeting? No. The word was calm, solid, final. I stepped past him, heading down the corridor, my heels echoing against the polished floor. Each step felt like shedding a skin I'd carried for years. Quiet daughter, overlooked sister, convenient target. They thought my silence meant weakness. They were about to learn silence was just preparation. The executive office sat at the far end of the administrative wing, past a frosted glass door. Guests rarely noticed. Most people assumed it belonged to some high-ranking manager. No one ever imagined what it really was. The owner's command center, quiet, polished, and intentionally understated. A place designed for decisions, not display. I entered alone. The lights hummed softly as they warmed. The ocean lay beyond the windows, stretching into the late evening blue. I crossed to the desk, dark wood, simple lines, and rested my hand on the chair behind it, my chair. For months, I'd kept my visits rare, my presence discreet, my ownership private. But tonight, privacy wasn't protection. Tonight, it was strategy. A knock sounded. Jason slipped in first. "He's on his way," he murmured. "And he's angry." "Good," I said quietly. "Let him be." Jason closed the door, just as it burst open again. Howard Sterling stormed in like a man accustomed to being obeyed. His silver hair was perfectly sculpted. His posture broadcasted entitlement. His wife Valerie followed, her earrings flashing. Then came Caroline, Mom, Ethan, and Lucas, an entourage dragged in by curiosity and the promise of witnessing drama they assumed had nothing to do with them. "What is this?" Howard barked, pointing a finger at me. I said I wanted to speak with the owner, not whoever she is. Caroline blinked at me, as if seeing me for the first time, a stranger, sitting where she'd never imagined me. "Allison, what are you doing back here?" Mom stepped in. "Sweetheart, you can't sit there." That's for before she finished. I lowered myself into the chair. "This is the owner's seat," I said calmly. "And I'm sitting exactly where I should be." Confusion flickered across their faces. Confusion, then disbelief, then the kind of laughter people use to reject reality. Lucas snorted. "Okay, seriously, move. We need to deal with this billing mess." Jason held up his tablet. "Mr. Sterling, she is the owner." Howard turned slowly, brows knitting. "Excuse me, she's the owner," Jason repeated steady. "Of this property and several others." The room fell into a vacuum. Silent, dense, heavy. I felt it press in on each of them as the truth shifted the ground beneath their feet. Caroline's lips parted, trembling. "Allison, that's not funny." "It's not a joke," I replied. Jason placed the documents, bills, payments, contracts, signatures on the desk between us. "The event upgrades you requested. Everything you authorized." He angled the pages toward Howard. "The owner wanted these ready." Howard's gaze dropped. I watched his eyes skim the first page, then the next, his confidence cracking. "Impossible," he whispered. I folded my hands. "Do you need clarification? Because I can walk you through each charge. You signed for every upgrade, premium linens, extended bar hours, specialty catering. They're all documented." His face reened. "You're price gouging." "You agreed to the prices." My tone didn't rise. "Not once." "You also agreed to the terms." Mom found her voice again, strained. "Allison, how when years ago I said simply, while you were busy worrying about whether my clothes were appropriate," Ethan stepped forward, needing to assert control. "You expect us to believe you own a place like this?" "You never asked what I built," I said. "You only assumed what I didn't." Caroline shook her head, her voice small. "But you couldn't afford." "That's the problem," I said. "You never imagined I could." Silence. A long, brittle silence. Howard broke, first as expected. "I'm not paying these ridiculous charges. I'll dispute them. My lawyer will eat this place alive." I leaned back, meeting his eyes. "You can try, but the arbitration clause says otherwise. Any dispute goes through our legal process. It takes months, costs more than the bill itself." His mouth snapped shut. "You're threatening me," he hissed. "No." My voice was steady, almost gentle. "I'm reminding you that abusing staff and fabricating complaints has consequences. You made Maria cry. Jonah, too. You snapped at Kesha like she was furniture." Jason shifted beside him, jaw tight. Howard swallowed, cornered by a woman he thought beneath him. You insulted them," I said. "You treated them like they weren't human, and that matters to me." The room watched Mom gripping her purse, Ethan stiff. Caroline, blinking away tears that had nothing to do with wedding joy. I slid a printed summary across the desk. "Here is my offer. A goodwill refund of 20% of the total cost." Howard's eyes widened. Valerie inhaled sharply. Caroline nearly collapsed in relief. But it comes with conditions, I continued. The relief died instantly. What conditions? Howard asked, voice suddenly small. You will write apologies to each staff member you disrespected. Maria Jonah Kesha direct sincere signed. He sputtered. Absolutely not. Then there is no refund, I said. And the bill stands exactly as you approved it. Caroline turned to her father-in-law, panic rising. Dad, just do it, please. Valerie whispered urgently. Howard, accept the offer, his jaw clenched. I won't be lectured by. This isn't a lecture. I cut in softly. It's a boundary. Another silence fell, this one sharper, slicing through ego. Finally, reluctantly, painfully, he nodded. Fine. Relief cascaded through the room. Jason handed him a pen. We can provide the names. Howard took it with trembling fingers. Caroline wiped her tears. Allison, I didn't know. I didn't know any of this. That was the point, I said. I never needed you to know. But I won't let you treat me, or anyone who works for me, as less. Mom stepped forward. Honey, why didn't you tell us? Because you weren't listening, I answered. Ethan swallowed hard. We were awful. Yes, I said you were. Lucas tried to recover some composure. So, all of this time you owned? I held up a hand. This isn't about the property. It's about respect. Something you've all been very comfortable denying me. No one spoke. For once, the silence belonged to me. I stood. You can go now. The reception needs the bride, and I have a few things to sign. No demands. No raised voice, just truth, clean and cutting. Caroline approached, slowly like a child nearing the edge of a cliff. Thank you for the refund and for everything. We'll talk later, I said. She nodded, eyes red. One by one, they filed out. Howard was last, gripping the apology letters Jason prepared. His pride scraped raw. When the door finally shut, Jason exhaled. That was incredible. It was necessary, I said. Outside, the faint pulse of music drifted into the quiet. Guests danced, laughed, celebrated a perfect wedding layered over a storm only a few people had witnessed. I looked at the documents on the desk. Ownership, responsibility, boundaries long overdue. This was the moment everything shifted exactly where it needed to. Do you want me to continue with Part 6? Resolution Aftermath 300 words Ben Denoy Part 6 Resolution and Aftermath 300 words Chat GPT. Denoy. The reception was in full bloom by the time I stepped back into the ballroom, lights soft, music warm, guests blissfully unaware of the storm that had just rerouted the entire night. Caroline spotted me first. She broke away from a cluster of relatives and hurried over, still glowing in the way only brides do. But her eyes told the truth. She'd been crying. Allison, she breathed, voice trembling. I'm so sorry for everything I said, for everything we said. I didn't rush to comfort her. I simply let her finish something no one in our family ever bothered to allow. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I was so caught up in appearances. Appearances, the currency of her world. I know, I said. Just stop mistaking kindness for weakness. She nodded, and for the first time in years, she reached for my hand, not out of show, but out of something real. Ethan approached next, looking more unsteady than I'd ever seen him. I was an ass, he said bluntly. I thought I was above you. Turns out I wasn't even close. He huffed a broken laugh. I'm sorry, Allison. I nodded. Be better, that's all. Mom came after slower, her pride deflated into something softer. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I just wish I'd seen you sooner. I met her eyes. I wish that, too. She pulled me into a hesitant hug, the kind we hadn't shared since childhood. And for a moment, the years of distance didn't feel so heavy. I found a quiet corner as the night moved on, sipping water, watching the glow of the room. Howard had already handed the apology letters to Jason. Small steps, but steps nonetheless. Then my phone buzzed. Daniel, you okay? Me. Yes. For the first time in a long time, the wedding continued around me. Caroline laughing, Ethan dancing badly, Mom fussing over centerpieces like nothing had changed. But something had. The balance had shifted. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I demanded respect. By the time the last song faded and the guests drifted toward the exits, the resort felt different, lighter, somehow, as if the walls themselves had been holding their breath all night. I stepped outside onto the terrace, letting the ocean air wrap around me. The lights from the ballroom glowed behind me, warm and distant. For years, I'd wondered if my silence made me invisible. Tonight proved it had only made me underestimated. Caroline and Lucas walked past on their way to the honeymoon suite. She paused, turning back to me with a soft smile. "Thank you for staying," she said. "Really?" I nodded. "Enjoy your night. Start fresh." When they were gone, I leaned against the railing, watching waves break against the rocks. Steady, relentless, unbothered by anything thrown at them. Maybe that was who I had become. My phone buzzed again. "Daniel, proud of you. Come home soon." I smiled at the screen. If you've ever stood where I stood, silenced, dismissed, underestimated, remember this. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to know your worth and stand still long enough for the truth to force its way out. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories like this.